It's always a pleasure to come back to Stanford, to the graduate school, to kind of rekindle my thinking and my motivation to do what I do. She asked me to talk about being an icon. I'm not an icon. And I don't even know if I started a legacy. But I can tell all of you that over the years, I've tried to affect change for people, most of the time are less fortunate than myself. And looking back, I can say that every day of my life, I worked hard. I tried to do things honestly and fairly. And I could get up every morning and look in the mirror, and I said, I did it with pride. When I think about my journey, and it's been a long and blessed journey, I can honestly say that I was a affirmative action baby, and I take great pride in that. And many of you are so young, you would say, what does that mean? Also, I was one of the first of what we call the Jet first generation. Now, I know you're really puzzled behind that. Well, back in the days when Jet and John Johnson started Johnson Publishing and Jet Magazine, people of my age, when we were going and doing things, there was usually the first black who was elected to this or appointed to that, or who was someone who had never been in places that we always aspired to be. As a group, we were really blessed with the opportunities the vast majority of Black Americans did not have. And as a group, we realized that we had to work harder than many of our non-minority peers. We had to accept that there was discrimination and prejudice and continue on. But above all, we had to accept that we could not be anything but models, because we could not mess it up for the people coming behind us. For me, my Jet first experiences were, I was the first Black TV host of a program in New York City. There had never been a Black program. It was called Inside Bedford-Stuyvesant. You've never heard of it. But I had the distinction of being the co-host with Roxy Roker, and you probably don't remember her from the Jeffersons, but you remember her as the mother of Lenny Kravitz. And that was our thing, and we got up every morning and did that. As it was alluded to, I was the first Black at McKinsey & Company, and that was very difficult in the late 60s for a lot of reasons which I cannot go into tonight. And I don't have that much time to go in tonight. But you can imagine what it was like to be the first Black at McKinsey in the late 60s. And I was the first Black senior vice president at Boston Consulting Group. I did not plan to spend 42 years of my life as a management consultant. But I had a great experience and a long journey with two great firms. One, I developed it, and I'm really blessed, and I think back on it, and I say, why was it so good? And I'm going to give you the very simple reasons. One, I developed skills and capabilities and experiences that truly empowered me to affect change both domestically and internationally. Two, I opened up doors for other talented Blacks once I was there so they could receive the same training and the same experiences. And I cannot tell you how proud I was 3 weeks ago when I was in Washington, D.C. at the Black alumni of Stanford Business School to introduce and be part of a session with Tony Miller, class of 1993, and Jim Shelton, class of 1995, and to give them the praise that they deserve of really taking on the challenge of turning around the Department of Education. And I guess the third reason I was so blessed in being a consultant is I really do get a thrill out of mentoring, assisting, and at times giving hard love to the present generation of the best and the brightest that are represented in this room and other rooms across the country. I'm now in the twilight of my career. I accept that my role is to continue to mentor, to motivate, and to embarrass. And because when you get old, you can embarrass and you don't lose any sleep over it. So I'm old enough, I can say what I want to do. And I used to look at old people and they say, why are they so crotchety? But they don't care, And I'm one of these crotchety old people now. And not too long ago, I wrote a letter to two of my friends at NBC because I wanted to embarrass them. And I wrote them and I said, why? why did you have a panel on Black America? Why did you have the same people on that panel that we've seen on so many panels? Which is all right, I know them all, some I've contributed to. But what saddened me is they always articulate the problems that confront Black America, but they never offer solutions. I asked them also, why is it that you would have a panel on Black America and never talk about economic development and never talk about building minority businesses of size? And thirdly, why would you have a panel on Black America and not include the new breed of leaders? And as I look out in this room, I can clearly see that you are the new breed of leaders. So I end my message to you, as I ended my letter to them by saying, the world that we live in is very, very complex and very fast-moving and very scary. But we should all accept the fact, by the year 2042, the majority of the population in the United States will be minority. And three, it is incumbent upon the present and the future leadership to ensure that the fast-growing younger minority populations are trained and motivated to be producers of wealth and not consumers of wealth. That solutions and action plans have to be developed by strong new leaders who can solve problems and not merely identify them. Strong leaders who are able to trust in one another, work together irrespective of race, ethnicity, or gender, invest in one another with a long-term vision, conduct and share in-depth research with one another, design new programs and policies that have a major impact on all of our communities, and leverage the unique relationships, be they at Harvard, Wharton, and Stanford, Howard, Hampton, and Spelman, or even the University of Nairobi and Cape Town, who are able to invest wealth and create businesses with the wealth created by athletes and entertainers, so we will be able to employ not only hundreds, but thousands of people who want to work. Leaders who can leverage the 3 degrees of separation within the Hispanic and the Black community for the good of all America, and become, lastly, new models of new leadership. It is critical that we embrace diversity of thought, we embrace new approaches, and we embrace new partnerships with the desire to win for all. We might have to accept, and I say this with pain in my heart, that we might have to cast aside many of the leaders whose on backs that we were able to develop because they were not able to rekindle the thinking needed in today's very complex and challenging economy. Because I do not want to be cast aside, I will keep coming back to Stanford, I will keep getting my mind rekindled, and I will keep trying to fight and think and work and pray for change. And with your help, hopefully I will be able to extend my legacy for one more generation. Thank you.
And as you know, 25 years ago, I finished business school here. I wear it well, thank you. And I am very humbled and flattered to be the alum selected to speak with you tonight. Now, first and foremost, I want to say that I am proud of each and every one of you here at the GSB, and I welcome you to your next phase of your lives. What I'd like to do tonight is share a few nuggets of wisdom that have sustained me through my career and are helping shape the legacy that I hope to leave behind. Now, we all know the theme for tonight is From Legends to Legacy. Well, this topic truly resonates with me because as I look back, I have been very, very fortunate from my early part in my career to learn from some of the true legends in business. And now, I find myself thinking more and more about what legacy I'd like to leave. I am blessed to have achieved many of my career goals, which allows me the legacy to spend time and energy towards creating a legacy, my legacy. So tonight, I'd like to share some insights and some memorable anecdotes from the legends that I've had and what they've shared with me, with the hope that they may one day be helpful to you as you make the crucial decisions towards your own life and your career. Is that okay? Yes. All right. Now, it would be very difficult to understand the legacy that I intend to leave behind without first understanding the legacy that was left for me. My personal and professional values were shaped by my childhood and by my not-so-legendary parents. I grew up in New Brighton, Pennsylvania, and as you have heard, I am the youngest of 18 children. My father was an AME minister and my mother a homemaker. And although neither was college educated, both parents stressed education and faith in our home. Their goal was to educate each of their children and instill in them the values needed to succeed in life. My father died when I was 10 years old, leaving my mother to raise all of her children by herself, 6 of us who had not yet finished high school. Now, my mother was an incredibly strong woman of faith and wisdom and was undaunted by the enormity of that task. With little more than faith and will, my mother ensured that we received a college education in spite of the challenges of having no financial resources. And as my husband likes to say, I wasn't poor, I was po. But it was never a question of if we would go to college, but which college would we attend? And ultimately, 16 of us attained college degrees, 2 have doctorates, and 5 masters. As it turned out, my mother was my first mentor, though I may not have realized or appreciated it at the time. She was a model CEO for her family, making us high performers through her nurturing and her quiet guidance. 5 core lessons or creeds from my mother continue to serve me well to this day, kind of her legacy, so to speak, and I'd like to share those. The first, as my childhood experience attests, is that where there's a will, there's a way. My mother instilled in us that anything you put your mind behind and your efforts to, you can achieve. You've got to believe in yourself and your God-given talents and abilities so strongly that nothing or no one can deter you. That certainly doesn't mean you won't face challenges, because you absolutely will, and obstacles as well. But it's up to you to persevere and emerge stronger than ever before. And as that Po country bumpkin from New Brighton who stepped on this campus in 1983, I'm a living testimony that where there's a will, there's a way. Now, her second credo was, anything worth doing is worth doing well. And as graduates of the Stanford Business School, you will have the opportunity to achieve many great things. So no matter what you choose to be, just be the best run around. I have a question. How do you complete the phrase? Practice makes perfect. Actually, practice does not make perfect. Practice makes permanent. So if you practice a bad habit or neglect to correct a bad habit, it will become permanently a bad habit. But if you practice perfection and practice excellence, you will achieve and deliver it, because anything worth doing is absolutely worth doing well. And you can never go wrong with excellence, even in the small things, especially the small things. It's so easy to make an impression, and it's so easy to do it through the small things. And speaking of impressions, that's my mother's third credo. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Treat everyone you meet respectfully and as you would want to be treated. Flash them your stunning smile. And if you don't have one, Go back and look in the 1985 GSB yearbook, where my quote was, "If you see someone without a smile, give them one of mine." I've got plenty to share. Radiate warmth and exude confidence. Articulate when you speak. Hold your head up proudly and make eye contact. Command their attention. You never know whom you're meeting or who's watching. And that first impression is absolutely a lasting one. Now, those are 3 of the early lessons that my mother taught me, and they've served me well. And no matter what twists and turns my career would take. But growing up in Western Pennsylvania, I was surrounded by the steel industry, and I wanted to run a steel mill. So during my 4 years at Carnegie Mellon, where I majored in metallurgical engineering, yeah, serious nerd, yeah, the steel industry was where I was going to be. I did not anticipate the rapid decline. Mind you, this is the late 70s when the steel industry moved to Japan. Fortunately, I had an advisor that had planted the seed of pursuing an MBA, and I was fortunate enough, or blessed enough, as I like to say, to be accepted to Stanford's GSB. Now, during my second year of B school, I was recruited to General Mills by a director there who told me she would teach me everything I needed to know to succeed in business. All she asked in return was that I teach someone else. This was my first business mentor, the phenomenal and even legendary Ann Fudge, who actually was mentored by Mr. Lowry here, who went on to become one of the top African-American females in corporate America as CEO, the former CEO of Young and Rubicon. Now, Ann taught me the importance of integrity and balance and well-being to success. She also taught me that great leaders continually evolve through working relationships with bosses, peers, subordinates, other leaders, and they always find ways to improve themselves. Ann, who left a legacy of guiding others through the corporate world, has now passed the torch, a torch I hope to carry on. And I am ever grateful to have been touched by her legendary leadership. But back to my mother and her legacy. It wasn't after I'd had a few jobs, including one where I learned how to work in a changing environment through an acquisition, or one where I learned how and when to stand up for myself, or one where I learned what not to do as a leader, and yes, we all do have that one bad job. It wasn't until I was downsized through a division relocation that I fully appreciated my mother's 4th credo, which was, when a Lord closes a door, he opens a window. That one carried me through many unexpected turns in my career path. And for me, closing a door gave me time to rest. And guess what? Another door did open, and very quickly, I might add, at SIBA Vision, where I became the executive director of advanced global research programs. Now, this job actually was my dream job, or at least at that point in my career. And for the next 3 years, I traveled the world, visiting 17 countries on 4 continents, but it also didn't leave much time for a personal life. Now, at this point, I was in my mid-30s, and that biological clock was ticking fast. Now, what I took from that experience was immense personal growth, getting true global perspective, and finding a second mentor, an Englishman named Adrian Hunter. He was a visionary, a brilliant strategist, and he taught me what it takes to be one. But after 3 years of absolutely no balance in my life, and I lived out of a suitcase more than George Clooney did in Up in the Air, I wanted to get back to more traditional packaged goods, as well as get a little bit more grounded personally. So I went to Coca-Cola through their general manager's talent initiative. It was a great job with great exposure, and I held several positions there, but most notably the vice president of new product and package innovation, where my team created the legendary fridge pack and revolutionized the beverage industry. Life was good, and it was about to get better and more challenging at the same time. As I approached my 40th birthday, I was single, successful, enjoying life, and resigned to being single for the rest of my life. And I thought something that one of my older nieces said to me as I graduated business school was going to ring true. She looked at me and said, "Honey, you just priced yourself out of a man." It's like, oh, great. Hey. So I was turning 40. Figured, hey, I guess I did. Threw myself a 40th birthday party. Had a great, great time. And then, truly when I least expected it, a week later, I met Bruce. And you better be lucky I didn't bring him tonight. He is a piece of work in himself. And in 4 months, we were married. So all you single ladies, put your hands up. Don't worry, it'll happen. Now, I also want to tell you about some challenges that followed. Now, being from a very large family, I wanted children. My mother was fertile Myrtle the turtle. So the last thing I expected would be that it would be challenging for me to conceive. But it was. Uterine fibroids were interfering. So I went through 2 years of fertility treatments where I was poked, prodded, had surgery, had hormones turned off, had them turned back on, and went through 3 rounds of unsuccessful intrauterine insemination. Finally, I said no more. And we called an adoption agency. And in 5 weeks, literally 5 weeks, we were blessed with 3-year-old twin girls. Talk about instant parenting, yet not at all how we expected it to happen. Sydney and Simone had their own challenges. They had been in foster homes since they were 5 months old, 3 different ones. They weighed only 26 pounds at 3 years. They weren't potty trained, they didn't talk, and they had been diagnosed failure to thrive. So they needed lots of extra love and care and nurturing. My husband was an entrepreneur with his own coffee shop, and the girls went to work with him every day. Life was good in Atlanta. Actually, it was quite grand. And I had a great job, fantastic husband, and adorable twin daughters. No matter how hectic and crazy it was, I was getting balance in my life, and I really thought that I had it all. That's when I was presented with the next unexpected opportunity to become president of Soft-Sheen Carson Division of L'Oreal. Now, running a division had been my dream. In business school, I set a goal that I wanted to be a division president by the time I was 50. And here I was at age 42, being given the opportunity of a lifetime. And for the first time, I had to make a decision based on my family and not just me alone. Now, we knew that Sydney and Simone needed love and stability, but I was being offered what I thought was the pinnacle job. And that's when my husband did something that not many men would ever consider. He sold his coffee shop and gave it all up to become a full-time stay-at-home dad so I could fulfill my dream. 9 years later, he still cooks, cleans, does laundry, runs the kids to school, and he is an amazing corporate spouse. You ought to see him work a room. And he keeps a better house than I ever would. And Sydney Simone are now everything you would expect of pubescent preteens. Have 2 12-year-olds at the same time. Girls, goodness. Now, the legacy of this time period for me, and perhaps what I would consider my first legacy that I want to leave, is learning and proving that nurture and not just nature can change a child. Now, we moved to Chicago and then to New York during my 6-year tenure at L'Oreal. I closed plants, restructured an organization, relocated a division, and fully restaffed again. And while working in a culture that was truly foreign in every sense of the word. Have anybody in here ever worked for a French company? They are very demeaning. They're very confrontational. Family doesn't really matter a whole lot, and it's all about the bottom line. It is a tough culture to work in. I fortunately learned how to survive in a company whose culture was completely the antithesis of me without losing who I am. But in reality, it made me realize who I am and what was most important to me, which was my family. You see, the time at Soft Carson was exciting, but it was extremely difficult on my family. I commuted 3 hours a day between our home in Connecticut and New York City. Our girls were struggling in school, and I wasn't home to help them with their homework. And finally, on September 28th, 2007, was the day that I realized I needed to make some different choices. That was the day that my husband, at age 48, suffered a heart attack. 2 months later, we said goodbye, New York, and hello to the simple, peaceful Midwest lifestyle. Now, originally, I scoffed when the recruiter called and said, Amway? Who? Amway? Are they still in business? The recruiter said, you really just need to go see them. What does a day hurt? So I did. And never did I expect in my wildest dreams to find fulfillment in a direct selling company in a small town in West Michigan. But it's a company that shares my core values, treats people with respect, believes in giving back, and believes in possibilities. And because it's private, it's overtly Christian. Our founder, who is 84 years old, during our Christmas party will walk up with his Bible and read the Christmas story from the Bible. Sometimes it's like, yeah, thank you, Lord. I am now in my 3rd year as Chief Marketing Officer at Amway and truly enjoying the ride. I live 5 minutes from the office, a big change from New York, on a small 9-acre ranch equipped with horses and all. And my family is thriving. I get the opportunity to travel the world, most of the time in a corporate jet, and they're really nice. Transforming the way a global business sells itself and its products. And meanwhile, I'm transforming a bit myself. I'm not focused on the next position I will hold so much as the legacy that I'm going to leave behind, and thus my second point. To thine own self be true. A lot has changed since I began my career, but one thing hasn't. As an African American female, I am keenly aware that I not only represent myself, but every female and African American who is striving to be where I am. Now, we all look for someone like ourselves who has succeeded before us, and I never know whose path depends on the impression or legacy that I'm going to leave. So whether you find yourself traveling a career path that is well paved or barely marked at best, walk, as Donnie McClurkin would sing, with authority, without apology, because as a Stanford MBA, you do belong here. Do you know Donnie McClurkin's song? He says, I'm walking with authority, living life without apology. It's not wrong here. I belong here, so you might as well get used to me. And by the way, if there is no trail, blaze one for someone else to follow, which is my 3rd legacy that I'd like to leave. Now today, my husband Bruce and I look at where we are, we look at our family, our friends, and what we're able to do to our community, and marvel. He just smiles and shakes his head in amazement and says, who'd have thunk it? And our family has grown too. Sydney and Simone are now 12. Our son Seth, who we also adopted from foster care, is now 5, and we had him since he was 19 months old. We also have custody of our 8-year-old niece, Geraldine. And on weekends, we add two twin 2-year-old, little boys named Jalen and Jamin from our church. We have lots of room for them. We have fun. They bring their friends, and that's exactly the way we want it. So as we acknowledge all of the blessings, we continually look for people we can help along the way, which leads me to my mother's 5th and what I hope to demonstrate as my greatest legacy, which is, unto whom much is given, much is required. Because when you've been blessed, you must pass it on. So, to the graduating class of 2010 and all the other amazing students here tonight, I salute you on achieving the significant milestone in your life. May this be one of the great accomplishments that helps define you. May you soar to immeasurable heights and achieve your endless dreams. May you also live your life to the fullest at each stage in your career to develop the wisdom that enables you to teach others. Remember that careers and lives are not linear. Be confident in embracing the unexpected opportunities and have the faith that you will make your own unique way. And when you get there, when you accomplish goals that you didn't think possible, remember to reach back and teach someone else. You may or may not become a legend, but you will, however, in time, create your own legacy. It may turn out to be very different from the one you expected at age 26, or 42, or even 51. But it's yours to create, starting right now. May your future be as abundantly blessed as mine. God bless you.
Woody, would you please join me? We have a quilter whose work represents what we believe the Tapestry Award is all about. The art of weaving is a source of tradition and pride in the African American community. As far back as our African ancestors, the vibrant color and intricate design of tapestries have carried the symbolism and complexity of our heritage, as well as the significance of our history. We have this award for you. Woody, you are bad. And it is with great pleasure that I present to you, on behalf of your fellow alumni and the current BBSA students, this quilt. You are our very own legend and legacy. The man who couldn't decide whether to be a doctor or a businessman or a politician or a government official or a congressional candidate or a humanitarian or a policymaker. Oh, you know what I mean. And it's not over. Please welcome me and please join me in welcoming MBA graduate of 1981, Woodrow Augustus Myers.
Oh my God. Oh my goodness gracious. Oh, this is terrific. Wow. That is truly wonderful. Wow. Well, first I should thank Karen and Ya and the committee who determined that I was worthy of this honor. And thank you, those of you responsible for organizing tonight's event. I truly appreciate this amazing award. Thank you very, very much. You know, up to now, our program has moved like clockwork. The committee's expert organizational and planning skills, that will serve you well in all of your future endeavors. You guys put on a great program. So now I've been allotted 5 minutes to talk with you. But you know, that's really not enough time to tell you how much this award and this school and this university really mean to me. You know, in September, it will be exactly 40 years since an old diesel-spewing bus brought a naive 16-year-old boy from Indiana down the 101 from SFO to the Stanford campus. You know, when it crossed El Camino Real and turned down Palm Drive between the perfectly upright eucalyptus and palms, it gave him his first glimpse of Memorial Church and his first glimpse of the golden foothills in the background, now with 280 in front. And it gave him his first glimpse of his future, for his life was changed forever. In that amazing 40-year journey, I have been fortunate, and in the 2 years that I devoted to this institution, the Stanford Business School, I learned that this was the key to my success. I'm not saying that the Harvard Medical School or my time as a Stanford undergraduate or a member of the Stanford hospital staff or junior member, that they were unimportant. What I am saying is that what I learned at the Stanford Business School allowed me to optimize my effectiveness as a physician, as a business executive, as a member of the community, and most importantly, as a leader. The 4 minutes I have left with you tonight are insufficient to convey to you the importance of what you are learning and to your own professional lives and the institutions and communities that you will serve. If you don't already know it, those institutions and those communities need your leadership in both the best and in the worst ways. You know, inefficiency and the failure to measure and value quality are at the root of the problems of our nation's healthcare system, problems with which I have struggled now for almost 4 decades. Whatever progress I have helped to effect has been the result of harnessing the quantitative human resources, information technology, and operations management skills I acquired here at the GSB. Effective leadership in a complex environment is not an identified genetic trait. Rather, it is an acquired set of skills that need constant nourishment and reinforcement. So if you continuously nourish and reinforce what you have acquired here, you will become the generation that solves the big problems like clean energy and increased agricultural yields to improve global nutrition and inexpensive pharmaceuticals to treat diseases that are treated at the Stanford Hospital a few blocks away from here tonight around the world. If I had more time, I would encourage you to travel around the world, not just to the tremendous business centers in places like Singapore, Sao Paulo, and Shanghai, where construction cranes dominate the skies, but also to places like Cairo, Cape Town, Maputo, Minsk, Lisbon, Mogadishu, and others where I have seen so much untapped potential and therefore so much opportunity. I would encourage you, while you are still young, to get out of your comfort zone and take some good risks. Don't worry, Manhattan, LA, and Silicon Valley aren't going anywhere. They'll still be here when you get back. If I had more time, I would talk to you about what I have learned from these travels overseas, especially in Mozambique, and how important those travels have been to my own development and my own psyche. You know, you learn not to complain about shoes when you have seen as many people as I have with no legs. While here in the United States, we struggle with the problems of childhood obesity, in Mozambique, they still struggle with kwashiorkor and marasmus, which are the worst forms of childhood starvation. The leading cause of death in America for children under age 5 is from motor vehicle incidents. You know, I refuse to call them accidents because so many are the result of adults who intentionally ingest alcohol and then get into 2 tons of metal, glass, and gasoline and drive into families with babies. In Mozambique, the leading cause of death for kids under 5 is malaria from the bite of a mosquito, a completely preventable and or curable disease. And how do I know it is a preventable and curable disease? Because in the late 1800s, malaria was a leading cause of death here in the United States. There are huge problems left in the world to solve, and what you have learned here at the GSB are exactly the skills needed to solve them. You have a choice. You guys are clearly more than smart enough to outfox those poor schleps at the SEC and the Congressional Banking and Finance Committees. You are so smart, I bet you could figure out a way over the weekend with a few of your classmates. You could figure out a way to recreate or simply rename financial derivatives like credit default swaps or other collateralized mortgage-backed securities and make money. Real money, not that seven-figure chump change those guys from Columbia and UCLA could make. Or you could choose to fix the real problems in our economy, problems my generation has failed to fix. So maybe your nephew Bubby in Compton, or your cousin Gloria in Detroit, or your distant cousins in Harare or Nairobi can get real jobs, feed their families, and live healthy lives. But folks, I've got less than a minute left, and because your committee is comprised of brilliant, talented Stanford Business School students, I dare not violate paragraph 5A1 of the terms of my Tapestry Award acceptance agreement. For if I do, they will have the right to revoke my after-dinner cocktail with progressive sanctions to follow. Whatever you plan to do when the trees on Palm Drive are in your rearview mirror, please aim high. You are the best we have to offer. Be bold, be brave. Tackle the tough stuff that will make the world better. You will be well recognized for what you do, and you will be well paid, and you will be successful. But here's the real question. Will you also make a difference in the lives of those who depend on you, the talented 10th? You will acquire way more land than the 40 acres your great-great-grandfather was promised, and way more horsepower in your garage than that generated by a single mule. And that's okay. It is okay if and only if you also employ your individual intellectual assets for the greater good and achieve a collective and communal rate of return, a return that society can accrue. Thank you all very much. I very much appreciate this award.